What if I told you that rejection, the very thing you fear the most, could actually become your greatest ally? Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, lived surrounded by criticism, betrayal, and challenges that would have crushed anyone else. He ruled an empire in times of war, plague, and political conspiracies, and yet in his meditations he left us a timeless reminder. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Rejection is one of those outside events. You cannot control whether people approve of you, whether they choose you, or whether they shut the door in your face. But you can control how you respond, and that is where true strength is forged. In this video, you're going to discover 13 Stoic lessons from Marcus Aurelius on how to turn rejection into your advantage. These are not abstract theories. They are practical, battle-tested principles that can transform the way you see failure, criticism, and denial. By the end of this journey, you won't just tolerate rejection, you will welcome it as fuel for growth, resilience, and inner freedom. And here's my promise to you: each lesson will give you a new perspective, a tool you can apply immediately in your daily life. Whether it's being turned down in a relationship, overlooked at work, or dismissed by society, Marcus Aurelius will show you how to stand unshaken. These lessons are not about avoiding rejection, they are about mastering it. But here's the intrigue: stay until the very end, because the final lesson is the most powerful of all. It contains the ultimate Stoic insight that can shift the way you experience not only rejection, but life itself. It's the kind of teaching that has the power to set you free from fear and give you a calm strength that no one can take away. So, ask yourself, are you ready to stop seeing rejection as a wound and start seeing it as a weapon? Are you ready to embrace the no that the world throws at you and turn it into a resounding yes to yourself? If the answer is yes, then you are exactly where you need to be. This is not just another motivational video. This is Stoicism in its purest form. Hard truths, practical wisdom, and lessons that have endured for centuries. Marcus Aurelius did not escape rejection, criticism, or betrayal, but he turned them into stepping stones toward unshakable inner peace. And now, so can you. Before we begin, I want you to do something simple but powerful. Go to the comments and write this short phrase: rejection builds strength. Let it be your declaration, your first step into a Stoic mindset. Because from this moment on, rejection is no longer your enemy, it is your teacher. Now, let's dive into the first lesson. Lesson 13. Rejection reveals the truth of others, not the worth of yourself. Rejection has always carried a sting. It is that moment when the world seems to say, "You are not enough." Whether it comes from a failed job application, an unreturned affection, or a friend who turns away, rejection cuts deep because it feels personal. Yet Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic philosopher, offers us a way to reinterpret rejection altogether. His wisdom teaches us that rejection is not an evaluation of our essence, but rather a reflection of the judgments, limitations, and perspectives of others. To begin, let us understand a crucial Stoic principle: the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. Rejection belongs to the realm of what is not in our control. The opinions, decisions, and preferences of others are not ours to command. What we do command, however, is our interpretation of those events, our response, and the meaning we attach to them. In this way, rejection becomes not a verdict against us, but a mirror showing the inner world of the one who rejects. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his meditations, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This principle extends to the judgments of others. If a person rejects you, it does not mean their rejection contains truth about your worth. It only reveals what they perceive, often clouded by bias, misunderstanding, or circumstance. Why then should you surrender your peace of mind to their incomplete vision? Consider this. When an employer declines your application, does that single decision define your capabilities? Of course not. It may simply mean they were seeking a different profile, or that the timing was not aligned. When a person does not return your love, does that diminish your capacity to love? Not at all. It only signals that their heart was directed elsewhere, not that yours is lacking. Rejection, then, is rarely about you. It is almost always about them, their situation, their perception, their choices. This is why Marcus Aurelius counseled himself constantly to examine the motivations of others without resentment. In Book 11 of the Meditations he wrote, "Whenever someone has done wrong by you, immediately consider what notion of good or evil led him astray." In other words, their actions reveal their own reasoning, not your deficiency. Applied to rejection, this means when someone says no, it exposes their perspective, not your essence. Now let us move deeper into the Stoic exercise of reframing rejection. Picture rejection as a door. You stand before it, knocking. Inside, someone chooses not to open. Your first instinct may be to assume that you are unworthy of entering, but Marcus would ask you, why tie your value to a closed door? The fact that one door remains shut does not negate the countless others waiting for you. To identify yourself with that single door is to shrink your existence into the smallest possible space. The wiser path is to acknowledge, this door is not mine to enter. My path leads elsewhere. The Stoics practiced journaling as a way to train perspective. You can do the same when rejection strikes. Take a sheet of paper and write down the event in the simplest, most factual way possible. For instance, I was not chosen for the promotion, or they declined my proposal. Do not attach emotion. Then beneath it write, this is their decision, not my essence. Repeat the exercise until it becomes instinct. The purpose of this practice is to separate fact from interpretation, to prevent the emotional storm from sweeping you away. Marcus Aurelius faced rejection on a scale few of us can imagine. As emperor, every policy, every military decision, every alliance was scrutinized. There were senators who despised him, generals who doubted him, citizens who cursed his name. If he had allowed each rejection to define his worth, the Roman Empire would have descended into chaos. Instead, he reminded himself daily that other people's judgments belonged to them. His task was to live according to virtue, justice, wisdom, courage, and temperance, regardless of the noise outside. And here is the essence of the Stoic approach. Your worth is not contingent upon being chosen. Your worth lies in whether your actions align with reason and virtue. The world can say no 1,000 times, but if you remain faithful to your principles, you stand unshaken. Approval belongs to fortune, but virtue belongs to you. This truth cuts sharply against modern culture. Today, validation is currency. Social media tells us our value lies in likes, comments, and followers. Corporations measure us by productivity, awards, and recognition. Relationships are judged by status, beauty, and appearances. Yet the Stoics call us to rebel against this illusion. Your value cannot be outsourced to the opinions of strangers. It cannot be granted or withdrawn by an external hand. It is rooted in your character, your integrity, your reason. Rejection, therefore, becomes a test. It asks, will you let another's perception dictate your sense of self? Or will you stand firm, anchored in the knowledge that your worth is untouchable? Every rejection you endure offers this choice: to collapse in self-doubt or to rise in self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius offers us another guiding phrase: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Rejection, then, is not a wall, it is the way. It does not stop your journey, it redirects it. It shows you where not to go so that you may discover where you are truly meant to stand. Each rejection refines you, stripping away false paths until only the true path remains. Let us pause here for a practical Stoic challenge. The next time you face rejection, instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is this rejection showing me?" Perhaps it reveals an area of growth. Perhaps it redirects you to a greater opportunity. Or perhaps it simply teaches you resilience, the ability to stand tall in the storm. In every case, the rejection is not the enemy. The enemy is your interpretation that says, "I am worthless." Replace that with, "This is not my door, my path continues." We can illustrate this with the image of a blacksmith. Every strike of the hammer against metal is a form of rejection. The hammer says no to the metal's current form, but with each strike, the metal is shaped, strengthened, purified. Rejection in life works the same way. Each no is a hammer shaping you, hardening you, preparing you. Instead of shattering, you emerge sharper, stronger, truer. And so we arrive at the core of Lesson 13. Rejection reveals others, not you. It exposes their preferences, their blindness, their timing, their path. It cannot touch your essence unless you hand it that power. To live as a Stoic is to reclaim that power, to stand rooted in virtue while the winds of rejection blow around you. I invite you now to declare this truth aloud. Say it as Marcus Aurelius would have written it in his journal. Go to the comments and write, "I am not defined by rejection." Let this be your shield. Let this be your practice. Each time you face rejection, return to this phrase until it becomes second nature. Rejection is not a verdict against you. It is a revelation of them. And with this understanding, you are free. Free to walk forward, free to create, free to love, free to persist. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that true freedom comes not from being chosen, but from choosing ourselves again and again in the face of every rejection. Lesson 12. Rejection strengthens the muscle of resilience. Rejection is often seen as a breaking point. People imagine that being turned away, dismissed, or ignored is a wound from which recovery is slow. But Marcus Aurelius would remind us that rejection is not the end of our strength. It is the beginning of it. Every time you encounter rejection, you are being handed a training ground, an opportunity to strengthen the muscle of resilience. Resilience, in the Stoic sense, is not about simply enduring hardship until it passes. It is about transforming hardship into power. Marcus Aurelius lived through wars, betrayal, sickness, and unimaginable pressures. He was rejected countless times by those who doubted his leadership or resisted his philosophy. And yet, in his meditations he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant was simple. Rejection does not decide your fate. Your response does. Think of resilience like training in the gym. Each rejection is a weight. At first, the weight feels unbearable. You struggle under its force. But with practice, repetition, and endurance, what once seemed crushing becomes manageable. Over time, you grow stronger, not in spite of the weight, but because of it. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without rejection, there is no resilience. The modern world has conditioned us to seek comfort. We want smooth paths, open doors, constant validation. But comfort weakens the spirit. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics understood that growth requires friction. When you are rejected, the world is giving you friction. It is placing you under pressure so that you may expand beyond your current limits. If you interpret rejection as defeat, you collapse under the weight. If you interpret rejection as training, you rise above it. Let us ground this with a practical exercise. The next time you are rejected, whether by a person, a company, or even society itself, pause and reframe the experience. Write down this phrase. This is resistance, and resistance builds strength. Repeat it until the sting of rejection turns into the burn of training. Just as muscles grow when they are torn and repaired, Your character grows when it is tested and rebuilt. Consider also how resilience reshapes your identity. A person who has never been rejected remains fragile, dependent on external approval. But a person who has been rejected repeatedly and yet continues to move forward becomes unbreakable. That unbreakable spirit is what the Stoics valued most. They knew that the world cannot promise acceptance, but it will always offer rejection. To meet rejection with resilience is to live aligned with nature itself. In this way, rejection becomes a gift. It removes illusions and demands growth. It teaches you that you are more durable than you think. It strips away your dependence on the acceptance of others and directs you inward toward your own self-sufficiency. Marcus Aurelius called this inner citadel, the fortress of the mind that no rejection can penetrate. So when you face rejection, do not say, "Why me?" Instead, say, "Thank you for this weight. I will grow stronger because of it." Every no becomes another exercise in resilience, another step in building the unshakable spirit that defines the Stoic way of life. And I want you to declare it now. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection trains my resilience." Make it your Stoic affirmation, because the more you repeat it, the more you transform rejection from a wound into a weapon. Rejection does not weaken you, it trains you. Each time the world says no, you are being called to rise, to endure, and to strengthen the muscle that no one can take away: resilience. Lesson 11. Rejection protects you from false paths. Rejection often feels like a locked door that bars you from what you desire. The immediate reaction is frustration, sadness, or anger. Why am I not allowed in? But Marcus Aurelius would urge you to pause and reconsider. Perhaps that door was never meant for you. Perhaps rejection is not a punishment, but a protection. The Stoics believed that nature has a rational order and that everything unfolds as it must. When you are rejected, you are not being denied your destiny. You are being redirected to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Whatever happens to you was prepared for you from the beginning of time." This includes rejection. What appears to be an obstacle is often a hidden safeguard, keeping you from wasting your life on false paths. Think about the times in your own life when rejection eventually led to something greater. Perhaps you were denied a job that seemed perfect, only to discover a better opportunity later. Perhaps you were rejected in love, only to realize that the relationship would have trapped you in misery. What felt like a painful no at the time was in truth the universe's way of saying, "Not this way." Marcus Aurelius compared life to an archer shooting arrows. The archer does not control the wind, the target, or the outcome, only the action of aiming and releasing. Rejection is the wind that redirects the arrow. At first it seems to push you off course, but with perspective, you see that it carries you closer to where you were always meant to land. From a Stoic standpoint, clinging to what rejects you is irrational. If the path closes, it closes because it was not aligned with your nature. To fight against it is to fight against reality itself, and that only multiplies suffering. The wiser move is to trust that rejection removes illusions and protects you from investing your soul in what would ultimately harm it. Here is a Stoic practice for this lesson. The next time you experience rejection, write down the door that closed. Then ask yourself, if this door had opened, what burdens might I have carried? What illusions might I have chased? This reflection transforms rejection into gratitude. You begin to see the closed door not as cruelty, but as guidance. Consider how many lives have been shaped by rejection. History is filled with men and women who were denied recognition, opportunity, or acceptance, only to discover their true path in the aftermath. The Stoics would say, this is the natural order. Rejection removes falsehoods, clearing the way for truth. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that the purpose of life is not to gain every desire, but to live in harmony with reason and virtue. If rejection steers you away from a false desire and closer to your true nature, then rejection is not your enemy, it is your ally. So the next time a door closes in your face, do not curse it. Instead, breathe deeply and say, "This path was not mine." Then turn with courage toward the path that opens. And now, I invite you to declare this in the comments: "Rejection protects me." Let this phrase anchor you. For in the Stoic way, rejection is not the end of the journey, but the redirection toward the journey that was always meant to be yours. Lesson 10. Rejection teaches detachment from external validation. Human beings crave approval. From childhood, we are trained to seek praise, recognition, and acceptance. We feel secure when others say yes to us, and we feel crushed when they say no. But Marcus Aurelius, guided by the principles of Stoicism, would remind us that this craving for external validation is dangerous. Rejection becomes a painful teacher that strips away this dependence and forces us to root our value within ourselves. Marcus wrote in his Meditations, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. And this is the heart of the problem. We give more weight to what others think than to the truth of our own reason. When rejection arrives, it feels devastating because we have tied our self-worth to the approval of others. Yet in this very pain lies the opportunity for growth. Rejection teaches us detachment. It shows us that the world's approval is fragile, temporary, and outside our control. If we depend on it, we will always be enslaved to the judgments of others. But if we learn to detach, rejection loses its sting. Instead of being an enemy, rejection becomes a reminder. Your value is not theirs to give or take away. Think of a person standing in front of a mirror made of glass. If the mirror shatters, does the person disappear? No, they remain whole. In the same way, when someone rejects you, the reflection you sought is broken, but your essence remains untouched. Detachment is realizing that your worth exists independently of that reflection. The Stoics practiced what we might call value training. They asked themselves, what truly belongs to me? The answer was always the same: my reason, my choices, my virtue. Everything else, wealth, fame, status, approval, belongs to fortune. When rejection arrives, it is stripping away what never truly belonged to you. This is painful, but it is also liberating. Once you stop depending on external validation, you become free. Here is a practical Stoic exercise for this lesson. When you are rejected, pause and remind yourself, this person's opinion is theirs, not mine. It does not touch my character, my virtue, or my reason. Repeat it until you feel the grip of their judgment loosen. In time, you will see that rejection is simply a reminder of what was never in your control. Detachment does not mean indifference in the sense of coldness. It means independence. It means choosing to act with integrity whether others approve or not. Marcus Aurelius faced countless critics during his reign. If he had lived for their approval, his rule would have been paralyzed. Instead, he focused on what was right, not what was popular. That is the essence of Stoic detachment. So, when rejection strikes, take it as a training ground. Each no you hear is another chance to loosen the chains of external validation. Each closed door strengthens your independence. Over time, you will find yourself needing less from others and giving more from within. Now, let us turn this lesson into a declaration. Go to the comments and write, "My worth is not in their approval." Let these words free you from dependence, for the Stoic knows that true power comes not from being validated by others, but from living aligned with reason and virtue. Lesson 9. Rejection trains you to master emotional control. When rejection comes, the first reaction is almost always emotional. Anger, sadness, insecurity, or shame, these feelings rush forward like waves crashing against the shore. Most people are swept away by them, drowning in overthinking and despair. But Marcus Aurelius would remind us that emotions are not dictators. They are impulses we can observe, guide, and master. Rejection, painful as it is, becomes the perfect training ground for emotional control. The Stoics never denied that emotions exist. Marcus himself wrote about his frustrations, his grief, and his exhaustion. But the Stoic practice lies in not letting emotions rule over reason. He wrote in his meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Rejection belongs to outside events. The sting it creates belongs to our interpretation of it. If we train the mind, we can learn to meet rejection with calm instead of chaos. Think of emotions like wild horses. Rejection opens the gate, and suddenly the horses bolt. If you do nothing, they drag you across the field. But if you take the reins, you can direct their energy. This is what emotional control means, not suppressing emotions, but mastering them. Rejection gives you the opportunity to practice holding the reins when the horses want to run free. Let us make this practical. The next time you are rejected, perform this simple Stoic exercise. Pause. Do not react immediately. Do not send the angry message. Do not drown yourself in self-pity. Do not beg for acceptance. Instead, take a deep breath and remind yourself, this event is not within my control, but my response is. By inserting this pause, you transform rejection from a trigger into a teacher. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that events are neutral until we assign meaning to them. Rejection is just a word, a decision, an outcome. It has no power until you decide it does. By controlling your interpretation, you control your emotions. If you choose to see rejection as humiliation, you will feel crushed. If you choose to see it as training, you will feel stronger. Emotional control does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being enslaved by what you feel. The Stoic warrior still experiences pain, but he does not bow to it. Instead, he channels it. Rejection then becomes a repeated drill in the art of calm. Each time it arrives, you are given a chance to practice composure. With enough practice, calmness becomes your default. Imagine the power of this. While others rage, collapse, or retreat after rejection, you remain centered. You acknowledge the sting, but you do not let it dictate your actions. This makes you unshakable. And in a world where most people are ruled by emotion, the one who governs himself stands apart like a rock in the storm. So, the next time rejection strikes, thank it. It has given you another round of training in emotional control. Every no you face is one more chance to strengthen the muscle of calmness. Now declare it for yourself. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection trains my calm." Let this phrase guide you. For in the Stoic way, emotional control is not just strength, it is freedom. And rejection is the battlefield where this freedom is forged. Lesson 8. Rejection reminds you to focus on what you can control. At the heart of Stoicism lies a simple but life-changing distinction, the separation between what is within our control and what is not. Marcus Aurelius repeated this truth throughout his meditations because he knew how easily the human mind becomes enslaved by illusions of control. Rejection is one of the sharpest reminders of this principle. When you are rejected, whether by a person, an employer, or society, the event itself is outside your control. You cannot force someone to choose you. You cannot dictate the outcome of every opportunity. You cannot bend the world to your will. But what you can always command is your response, your judgment, your attitude, and your next action. That is where your power lies. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." D. This statement is the antidote to the sting of rejection. When the world says no, the Stoic does not collapse into despair. He redirects his energy inward and asks, "What can I control here?" Let us consider a simple example. You apply for a position and are rejected. You cannot control the decision that was made, but you can control your interpretation. You can view it as a personal failure or as feedback that will sharpen your skills. You can control your effort. Do you give up, or do you prepare for the next opportunity with greater wisdom? You can control your self-respect. Do you see yourself as diminished, or do you affirm that your worth is not tied to one outcome? Rejection is like a mirror that forces you to see clearly where your control begins and where it ends. Most suffering comes from trying to control what does not belong to us. We rage against the closed door instead of building a new one. We beg for approval instead of mastering our own standards. We collapse because we confuse external outcomes with internal worth. Stoicism teaches us to end this confusion. Here is a Stoic exercise for this lesson. When you face rejection, draw 2 columns on paper. On the left, write what I cannot control. List the external event, the decision, the words, the closed opportunity. On the right, write what I can control. List your thoughts, your actions, your next steps. Then commit to focusing only on the right column. This practice anchors your mind in the sphere of power that belongs to you. Marcus Aurelius lived under constant rejection. Senators resisted him, rivals doubted him, and enemies plotted against him. He could not control their opinions, but he could control his justice, his courage, his integrity. This is why he remained calm even under immense pressure. His focus was always inward, on the fortress of the mind. When rejection comes to you, remember this: the decision belongs to them, but the meaning belongs to you. You may not control the door that closed, but you always control how you walk forward. This shift in focus transforms rejection from a prison into a path. Now I invite you to declare it for yourself. Go to the comments and write, "I focus only on what I can control." Let this phrase become your Stoic compass. For when rejection strikes, it is not a signal of weakness. It is a reminder to return to your true power. Lesson 7. Rejection strengthens your alignment with inner values. Most people live according to the approval of others. They adapt their words, their actions, and even their dreams to fit the expectations of society. This is why rejection feels so devastating, because when others turn us away, it feels as though our entire identity collapses. But Marcus Aurelius would remind us that our true strength does not lie in external approval. It lies in living in harmony with our own values. Rejection becomes a gift because it pushes us to reaffirm who we are and what we stand for. In the Meditations, Marcus wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Notice what he does here. He does not say, "If others approve of it, then do it." Instead, he grounds his life in principles, not popularity. This is the essence of Stoic integrity, to act according to reason and virtue, regardless of whether others accept or reject us. Rejection then becomes a test. It asks, do you act for the sake of your own principles or for the sake of applause? When someone rejects you, the temptation is to bend, to compromise, to change yourself just to win their acceptance. But this is slavery. The Stoic path is freedom. It is standing firm in your values even when the world says no. Consider this. If you are rejected for speaking the truth, have you lost anything? Or have you demonstrated courage? If you are rejected for living with justice, have you failed? Or have you proven your integrity? Rejection clarifies the difference between shallow approval and deep virtue. It separates what is fleeting from what is eternal. Here is a Stoic exercise for this lesson. When you face rejection, ask yourself, Did I act according to my values? If the answer is yes, then you have already won. The rejection is irrelevant because your true aim is not to be liked. It is to live with virtue. If the answer is no, then the rejection becomes a lesson, urging you to return to alignment with your principles. In either case, rejection serves your growth. Marcus Aurelius faced rejection from those who disagreed with his leadership. He could have altered his course to win popularity, but he remained faithful to justice, wisdom, courage, and temperance. His reign was not defined by being universally loved, but by being inwardly aligned. This is why his writings still inspire centuries later. He chose principle over applause. Rejection forces us to ask the deeper question, who am I when no one applauds? If your worth depends on external approval, you will always be fragile. But if your worth is grounded in your own values, you become unshakable. Rejection, then, does not weaken you, it polishes you. It removes the false need to please others and sharpens your commitment to what truly matters. So, the next time rejection arrives, take it as a reminder. Your task is not to win the world's approval, but to live in harmony with your inner compass. If you remain faithful to your values, you cannot be defeated. Now make this your declaration. Go to the comments and write, "My values guide me, not their approval." Let this phrase be your shield, for the Stoic knows that rejection is not the loss of value. It is the confirmation that true value comes from within. Lesson 6. Rejection builds endurance against life's hardships. Life is not gentle. Marcus Aurelius ruled during wars, famine, and plague, yet his writings carry a sense of calm resilience that has endured for centuries. How did he remain composed? By treating every difficulty as training. Rejection, in particular, was not an enemy to fear, but a tool to build endurance, the ability to stand firm when life grows heavy. Endurance is not passive suffering. To the Stoics, endurance is active strength, the capacity to continue walking forward when the ground is uneven, when the sky is dark, when the people around you turn away. Marcus wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." This applies directly to rejection. The no you receive is not what breaks you, it is the meaning you attach to it. Endurance is forged when you train yourself to endure the sting without collapsing under it. Think of endurance like the roots of a tree. When storms strike, shallow roots are torn from the earth. But a tree with deep roots bends, adapts, and survives. Each rejection you face drives your roots deeper. Each disappointment reminds you to hold on, not to the world's approval, but to your own principles. Over time, you discover that you can withstand more than you ever imagined. Modern culture has weakened our tolerance for hardship. We expect quick results, easy victories, instant approval. But rejection interrupts this illusion and reminds us that life demands resilience. Every closed door, every denial, every silence forces us to confront discomfort. If you accept this confrontation, you grow. If you resist it, you remain fragile. Here is a Stoic exercise for this lesson. The next time you experience rejection, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What strength is this rejection building in me?" Write down one quality, patience, courage, humility, persistence, that this rejection is training. By doing this, you reframe rejection as part of your preparation for greater challenges ahead. Marcus Aurelius endured not only political rejection, but also personal loss. He buried children, faced betrayal, and lived with constant uncertainty. Yet his writings do not cry out in despair. They reflect acceptance, strength, and gratitude. He saw every hardship as a way to train his soul. Rejection, no matter how bitter, became part of this training. Endurance is freedom. When you learn to endure rejection without collapsing, you discover that nothing external can truly harm you. The opinions of others, the decisions of employers, the silence of those you love, none of these can dictate your inner strength. By enduring, you become untouchable. So the next time rejection strikes, stand tall, feel the sting, but do not surrender to it. Instead, remind yourself, this is my training. This rejection builds my endurance. The more you endure, the more unshakable you become. Now I invite you to declare it. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection builds my endurance." Repeat it until it becomes your truth, because endurance is not given, it is forged. And every rejection is one more strike of the hammer that makes you unbreakable. Lesson 5. Rejection strips away illusions and reveals reality. One of the greatest enemies of peace is illusion. We imagine how things should be, the job we deserve, the person who must love us, the recognition we are entitled to. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us in his Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Rejection is the moment when illusions collide with reality, and though it hurts, this collision can be liberating. When you are rejected, the illusion shatters. You see clearly that you cannot command outcomes, only your response to them. The job you thought was guaranteed, the relationship you believed was secure, the approval you counted on, all dissolve in a single moment. At first, it feels cruel. But if you step back with a Stoic perspective, you realize rejection has not destroyed you. It has destroyed your illusions. What remains is reality, and reality is always the safer ground to stand on. Marcus Aurelius often practiced negative visualization, imagining the loss of people, positions, and possessions before it happened. Why? Because by confronting reality in advance, he freed himself from false expectations. In the same way, rejection forces us to see the world as it is, not as we wished it to be. It is a harsh teacher, but a truthful one. Consider this. If you are rejected by someone you love, what is revealed? That their heart does not align with yours. If you are rejected in a career path, what is revealed? That this door was not yours to enter. Painful truths, yes, but truths nonetheless. And truths, even when bitter, are always more valuable than sweet illusions. Illusions keep us weak. They tie our happiness to fantasies that may never arrive. Rejection, by tearing down illusions, redirects us to what is real, present, and within our control. It clears the fog so that we may walk with steadier steps. Here is a Stoic exercise for this lesson. When you face rejection, write down the illusion you were holding. Was it the illusion of control? The illusion of guaranteed approval? The illusion that life owes you comfort? Then write, this illusion is gone, reality remains. Keep the paper as a reminder that clarity, though painful, is better than delusion. Marcus Aurelius was constantly confronted with rejection from senators, generals, and even citizens, yet he did not cling to illusions of universal approval. He accepted reality, that people will disagree, oppose, and deny. By accepting this, he found freedom. He no longer wasted energy fighting against what could not be controlled. Rejection, then, is not the enemy. It is the remover of illusions. It frees you from chasing false promises and redirects you to the truth. Your worth does not depend on outcomes, your peace does not depend on approval, and your life does not depend on imagined scenarios. So, the next time you face rejection, instead of saying, "I have lost," say, "I have seen the truth." This truth will strengthen you, for no illusion can enslave a mind that accepts reality. Now declare it. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection shows me the truth." Let this phrase remind you that illusions are fragile, but your spirit is not. And in the Stoic way, truth, even when painful, is always the path to freedom. Lesson 4. Rejection sharpens the practice of humility. Pride is a subtle trap. It whispers that we deserve constant success, admiration, and approval. It convinces us that the world owes us open doors and eager acceptance. Yet Marcus Aurelius warned himself daily against pride. In his meditations he wrote, "Do not imagine that if something is hard for you to accomplish, it is therefore impossible for man. But if it is possible and proper for man, believe that it is within your own reach." These words reflect humility, the recognition that we are not above failure, nor are we exempt from rejection. Rejection is a sharp but necessary teacher of humility. It strips away the illusion that we are always in control, always deserving, always chosen. It reminds us that life is larger than our desires and that other people's choices will not always align with our own. Though painful, this reminder grounds us. It teaches us to walk with less arrogance and more gratitude. Humility, in the Stoic sense, is not self-deprecation. It is clarity. It is knowing your true place in the order of things. You are not the master of the universe. You are a participant in it. Rejection humbles you because it reminds you that outcomes depend on countless factors outside your command. What you can control is not whether you are accepted, but how you respond when you are not. Consider the person who never experiences rejection. Such a person may grow arrogant, believing that every door will open, that every desire will be met. But the first real no shatters them completely. In contrast, the person who faces rejection often learns humility early. They understand that being told no is not an attack, but a fact of life. They adapt, they learn, they grow resilient, and in humility, they discover strength. Here is a Stoic exercise for this lesson. When you are rejected, instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "Why not me?" Remind yourself that no one is beyond rejection. Marcus Aurelius himself, Emperor of Rome, faced disapproval, criticism, and betrayal. If even an emperor was not immune, why should we expect to be? This question dissolves pride and replaces it with humility. Humility also frees us from entitlement. The entitled mind says, "I deserve to be chosen." The humble mind says, "I will give my best, and if I am rejected, I will learn." One path leads to bitterness, the other leads to growth. Marcus Aurelius would have chosen the second. Rejection then becomes not a humiliation, but a sharpening. It polishes away arrogance, leaving behind the smooth stone of humility. With humility, you stop demanding that the world bend to your will. Instead, you align yourself with reality. And in doing so, you find peace. So the next time rejection arrives, receive it not as an insult, but as a teacher. Let it remind you that you are human, that you are not owed every opportunity, and that your worth is not diminished by a closed door. Now, make this your declaration. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection teaches me humility." Let this phrase become your shield against pride. For in the Stoic way, humility is not weakness, it is wisdom, and rejection is the whetstone that keeps humility sharp. Lesson 3. Rejection trains you to embrace loss without fear. One of the deepest fears in human life is the fear of loss. We cling tightly to opportunities, relationships, and approval, terrified of what it means if they slip away. Rejection cuts directly into this fear because rejection is a form of loss. The loss of being chosen, the loss of a possibility, the loss of a dream. But Marcus Aurelius would remind us that loss is not the end of us. It is simply a part of life's natural order. In his meditations, Marcus wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." This wisdom captures a Stoic truth. We must embrace what comes, but also release what leaves without clinging in desperation. Rejection is life's way of teaching us this lesson again and again. You cannot keep everything, nor should you want to. Rejection becomes a kind of rehearsal for greater losses. Each time you are turned away, you are reminded that nothing external is guaranteed. This is not meant to crush your spirit, but to prepare it. The person who learns to accept small rejections with dignity will also be better prepared to endure larger losses with strength. This is the Stoic path. To train the mind not to collapse when life takes away what it never promised to begin with. Consider a practical example. When a friend distances themselves, or when a company declines your application, the first impulse is to resist. We ask, why must I lose this? But a Stoic perspective changes the question. Instead of resisting, ask, what is this loss training me for? In this moment, rejection becomes not a theft, but a teacher. The Stoics often practiced what they called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. They visualized loss in advance, losing health, losing possessions, even losing loved ones. This was not pessimism, but preparation. By imagining loss before it came, they learned not to fear it. Rejection serves the same purpose. Each no you hear is a small exercise in letting go. It whispers, do not cling too tightly. Learn to release. Marcus Aurelius lived through countless personal losses, including the deaths of his children. Yet he trained himself to meet each loss with calm acceptance. If an emperor could endure rejection and loss without despair, so can we. The key is to understand that nothing external belongs fully to us. Our only true possession is our reason, our virtue, our response. Rejection, then, is not cruelty. It is training. It prepares you to face life's inevitable losses without breaking. It teaches you to love fully what is given, but also to let go when it departs. This is the balance of Stoic living, embracing without clinging, holding without fearing release. So the next time rejection comes, do not see it as theft. See it as practice. See it as the gymnasium of the soul, where you are trained to face loss with courage. Each rejection strengthens your ability to stand firm when greater losses arrive. Now I invite you to declare it. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection trains me to let go." Let this phrase remind you that loss is not the enemy. Fear of loss is. And by embracing rejection with courage, you free yourself from that fear. Lesson 2. Rejection strengthens the discipline of patience. Rejection is rarely a single moment. It is not only the no you hear today, it is the long silence that follows, the waiting, the uncertainty. This is why rejection tests patience as much as it tests confidence. Marcus Aurelius understood this truth deeply. In his meditations, he reminded himself, time is like a river made up of the events which happen and a violent stream. For as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away, and another comes in its place. In other words, everything unfolds in its own time. When you are rejected, the immediate urge is to demand answers. Why not me? When will I succeed? How long must I wait? But Stoicism teaches that impatience is resistance to reality. The world will not always open its doors when you knock. Sometimes the door remains closed, not because you are unworthy, but because the moment is not yet right. Rejection becomes a lesson in patience, reminding you that timing is not yours to control. Patience is not passive waiting. To the Stoics, patience is active discipline. It is choosing not to collapse into frustration or despair while you wait for life to unfold. It is continuing to prepare, to grow, to refine yourself, even when recognition or opportunity is delayed. Rejection forces you into this discipline. It tells you, not now, keep working, keep waiting with strength. Think of a farmer planting seeds. He does not expect a harvest overnight. He waters, he cultivates, he trusts time. Rejection works the same way. A job denied, a relationship refused, an opportunity closed. These are seeds still under the soil. The Stoic farmer does not curse the ground. He waits, works, and trusts that what is meant to grow will grow in season. Here is a practical Stoic exercise for this lesson. When you face rejection, set aside a quiet moment and write down this phrase. This is not the end. This is preparation. Then, list one small action you can take to continue your progress, whether learning, practicing, or strengthening your mindset. By shifting focus from outcome to preparation, you transform waiting into discipline. Marcus Aurelius himself waited many years before becoming emperor. During that time, he endured countless setbacks, doubts, and political rejections, yet he never stopped preparing. He trained his mind, his character, his endurance. When the moment finally arrived, he was ready, not because the world had made it easy, but because he had mastered patience. Rejection, then, is not wasted time. It is training time. It teaches you to slow down, to release the illusion of immediate control, and to strengthen the discipline of patience. With each rejection, you grow less frantic, less desperate, more steady. You begin to see that life's greatest rewards come not to the impatient, but to the prepared. So when rejection meets you, do not curse the delay. Instead say, "This is my training in patience. Let the silence strengthen you. Let the waiting refine you. For patience is not weakness, it is power under control." Now declare it. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection trains my patience." Let this phrase remind you that every no is not an ending, but a pause. And in that pause, you are being forged into someone stronger, calmer, and wiser. Lesson 1. Rejection becomes the path to inner freedom. Of all the lessons Marcus Aurelius left us, perhaps the most liberating is this. True freedom is not given by others, but built within yourself. Rejection, which most people see as a chain, can instead become the very key that unlocks inner freedom. Why? Because rejection exposes how much of our identity we have tied to the approval of others. It shows us our dependence on being chosen, liked, or accepted. When someone says no, we often feel as though our value has been stolen. But Marcus Aurelius would remind us that what is truly ours, our reason, our virtue, our will, cannot be taken away. If rejection cannot touch these, then rejection cannot truly harm us. In his meditations, Marcus wrote, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." Rejection is one of those external things. It feels heavy because of the story we attach to it. I am not enough, I have failed, I am unloved. But these are judgments, not truths. And once we learn to change the judgment, we are free. Freedom, for the Stoics, was not about escaping society or avoiding hardship. It was about becoming untouchable in spirit, no matter what society or hardship delivered. Rejection provides the perfect arena for this training. Each time you are denied, you face the choice: collapse into dependence or stand in independence. Each time you choose the latter, you strengthen your inner freedom. Think of a bird in a cage. If its sense of worth depends on the cage being open, it will always feel trapped. But if it learns that its wings define its freedom, not the bars around it, then no cage can destroy it. Rejection is like that cage. It may close a door, but it cannot cut off your wings. Only you can forget you have them. Here is a Stoic exercise for this lesson. When you face rejection, close your eyes and repeat this phrase: "This cannot touch my freedom." Then reflect on the choices still available to you, the actions, the virtues, the inner power that remain untouched. By focusing on what is still yours, you break the illusion that rejection has imprisoned you. Marcus Aurelius himself lived in a position of immense rejection. No emperor could please every senator. every general, every citizen. Had his freedom depended on their approval, he would have been enslaved by their opinions. Instead, he built his freedom inward. He judged himself not by applause, but by alignment with virtue. That is why, centuries later, his words still free us. Rejection, then, is not a chain. It is a teacher. It strips away illusions of dependence and forces you to stand on the only ground that never shifts, your own inner strength. When you realize this, rejection no longer frightens you. It becomes proof that you are already free. So, the next time the world says no, smile inwardly and say, "You cannot imprison me. My freedom is mine." Each rejection becomes another reminder that your wings are still strong, your mind is still yours, your freedom is untouched. Now, declare it. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection makes me free." Let this phrase anchor you, for in the Stoic path, true freedom is never given by the world. It is claimed within, and rejection is the moment that reveals it. We have traveled together through 13 Stoic lessons drawn from the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. From seeing rejection as a mirror of others rather than yourself, to discovering in it the training ground for patience, humility, endurance, and inner freedom, you have learned that rejection is not an enemy. It is a teacher. And like all true teachers, it is not gentle. It challenges you, confronts you, and strips away illusions. Yet in doing so, it gives you the very tools you need to live with unshakable strength. Now, as we close this journey, let us reflect on what these lessons mean in the larger picture of life. Human beings fear rejection because we believe it takes something from us. We think it robs us of worth, opportunity, or love. But the Stoics remind us, what truly belongs to you, your reason, your virtue, your choices, cannot be taken away. If rejection cannot touch these, then rejection has no real power. What it does is reveal where you have placed false attachments. It shows you where you have allowed your peace to depend on others. And by showing you this, it calls you back to yourself. Marcus Aurelius faced more rejection than we often remember. Though emperor, he was not universally admired. Many resisted his leadership, many rejected his philosophy. Even in his personal life, he endured the rejection of fate through loss and grief. Yet in his meditations, written not for glory but for guidance, he returned again and again to the same truth. Nothing outside can enslave you unless you allow it. Rejection, no matter how sharp, is powerless before a mind aligned with reason and virtue. This perspective changes everything. Instead of seeing rejection as an ending, you begin to see it as a redirection. Instead of treating it as humiliation, you treat it as preparation. Instead of collapsing in pain, you rise in strength. Think back to the lessons we explored. Rejection reveals more about others than about you. It builds resilience, sharpens humility, teaches patience, strips away illusions, and trains you to let go without fear. Every no you encounter is an invitation to grow. Every closed door is a signal to redirect your energy. Every denial is a reminder that your worth does not belong to the hands of others. Imagine living this way, walking into each opportunity without fear, because whether the answer is yes or no, you remain whole. Imagine facing rejection in relationships without collapsing, because you know love cannot be forced and your value does not depend on being chosen. Imagine standing strong after being overlooked at work, because you see clearly that your worth is not tied to one decision, but to your integrity and persistence. This is the power Marcus Aurelius offers us, to live with inner freedom that no rejection can touch. The Stoics often compared life to a battlefield of the soul. Rejection is one of the sharpest arrows aimed at us. It wounds many, but it can also forge warriors. Those who learn from it, those who embrace it as training, become unbreakable. They are no longer controlled by the opinions of others. They are no longer enslaved by external validation. They live anchored in their own values, their own reason, their own virtue. This does not mean rejection ceases to hurt. Marcus Aurelius never denied the sting of human experience. He wrote about grief, pain, and fatigue with raw honesty. But he also reminded himself that pain is not the end. Pain is a signal, and signals, when understood, become guides. Rejection's sting is simply the signal that you are being invited to grow stronger. The more you embrace rejection as a teacher, the less it frightens you. And the less it frightens you, the freer you become. Fear of rejection chains countless lives. They avoid risks, they silence their voices, they shrink themselves in order to be accepted. But the Stoic who has learned these lessons walks boldly. He knows rejection may come, and when it does, he welcomes it. For each rejection is another step toward mastery. Now, let us step back and remember, life itself will reject us at the end. Death is the final rejection, the rejection of more time, more chances, more experiences. The Stoics meditated often on mortality, not to grow bitter, but to grow wise. If you can meet death with calm acceptance, then no smaller rejection can defeat you. By training yourself through the smaller no's of life, you prepare for the ultimate letting go, and in this preparation, you find peace. So, what do we take away from this journey through 13 Stoic lessons? That rejection is not an obstacle to avoid, but a path to embrace. That each denial strengthens you, each closed door guides you, and each painful no brings you closer to true freedom. That your worth is not for others to decide. It is anchored in your reason, your virtue, and your ability to govern yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Let these words echo in your mind whenever rejection strikes. The no you hear is not a wall. It is the way forward. It is the training ground where your resilience, humility, patience, and freedom are forged. And now, I want you to leave with a declaration, not just words, but a mindset you carry forward into every challenge. Go to the comments and write, "Rejection is my teacher." Let this phrase become your compass. Each time you are denied, repeat it. Each time you are overlooked, remind yourself of it. Each time you feel unworthy, claim it as truth. For the Stoic knows that rejection is not the end of the journey. It is the very path to mastery. So walk forward, not in fear of rejection, but in gratitude for it. Let it strip away illusions, humble your pride, strengthen your patience, sharpen your endurance, and free your soul. With each rejection, you are not weakened. You are made unbreakable. And as you carry these lessons with you, remember this above all. You do not need the world's approval to live a life of strength. You only need the courage to live aligned with reason, virtue, and truth. That is the essence of Stoicism. That is the legacy of Marcus Aurelius. And that is the freedom rejection offers to those wise enough to embrace it.